Okay, welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is going to be another kind of surreal Stampscapes type of scenic scenario here, using one of the Tubb-Sedillo pre-printed background papers. And this one features this large kind of planet right here, or moon, or whatever it might be. And that really kind of goes back to the utilization of this type of scale when it comes to planetary, type of image. Goes back to my years of really enjoying things like science fiction types of illustrations. This is a book that I got probably late 70s, maybe early 80s, and I used to look through it all the time. It features a lot of professional science fiction artists. But you can see the usage of scale in this scene when it comes to planets and things like that. We've seen it in movies like Star Wars and whatnot. But you can see a lot of these artists, are utilizing this, this, I don't know, whatever planetary orb type of, I don't know, icon to, I don't know, to, create visual interest in those sky areas like that and provide, lighting source and whatnot. But it just really provides a lot of drama in a scene. Okay, so anyways, I have my pencils out from yesterday using kind of one of the warmer tone backgrounds. Okay. And let's do something with this. Now, I talked about it briefly in my video yesterday about kind of utilizing what you've been given here in the existing background, because it has light and shade already in it, okay? So if you stamp something across this type of image that already has this shadow and this form pre-established, okay, if you stamp something kind of open next to it, that is going to be showing right through it, okay? So if I stamp this right here, we'll be able to see that planet going right through this rock, and this rock will look more like it's a transparent type of object. Or if you're doing something open like this, then what we can do is we can further render with our whatever media we're applying over the top of it and integrate this type of background light and shade into our objects that we're stamping, in this case, in front of it, okay? Now, these background papers are kind of designed more for silhouette styles of imagery, where it's just a solid black image, and you wouldn't have to worry about kind of these pre-existing forms that are already established in here, where they're depicted by light and shade again, okay? Because you can stamp anything that's dark against right over the top of it and not worry about it, okay? It's just black on top of anything that's lighter than that, okay? But I'm going to show you how, these are more versatile than that if you utilize them in the right way, okay? So I'm going to do this rock right here. Now, it's not a completely wide open rock. There's a lot of light and shade in it. This one's the boulders with lichen image. And we're going to go right over the top of this, and we're going to provide kind of a backdrop, that's going to have some dramatic lighting, hopefully, on it, okay? So you can see that right there, that moon goes into the, and it's like, okay, I can see, if I look at it carefully, here's this light side of the moon, and it's going right into that rock, but we're just going to color that right in and integrate the background colors into this foreground scenario here. Filling this out on the edges like that, okay? And let's stamp out our figure on there. Okay, this is the lady rider. Okay. So already, pretty dramatic. We can stamp some trees or something off to the side. Maybe I'll do that. here. I'm just going to use the top of the leafless pine image. I'm thinking now this might make a pretty dramatic reflection card if I format it that way. Okay, so we have this kind of background, midground, foreground scenario here. Okay, but again, here's this moon kind of, or whatever it is in the background, planet, going right through here. This is the part that I'm the most aware of right here, this light right in here, okay? So what we're going to do, let's start the integration process. Okay, so I have this color kind of swatch scenario here, okay? And we're going from light to dark like this, okay? Now that's how I utilized the colors in this piece right here. This one right here, if I start coloring in some areas in here, my shadow work, this isn't going to show up because this color right here is just about as dark as the lightest color here. So I need to go darker. So in other words, light over dark like this, we won't be able to see anything at all, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what color is dark enough in my color scenario that will show up, you know, in these rocky forms. All right, so what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start coloring in my shadow areas a little bit like this. Okay. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to anchor the imagery into the scene, okay? And make it look like it's incorporated into the scene, as opposed to transparent, you know, a see-through rock that's just showing the background imagery in here, if that makes sense, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm just basically, I'm coloring in my areas of my rock that are dark anyway, okay? So I'm reinforcing the shadows that are in the design itself. So if it's dark in here, I'm coloring it dark as well with this. Now, what I'm doing is I'm starting in the darker areas and then going into the lighter areas like that, okay? So I'm starting off in this darker area of this rock right here, and then you kind of move it up. Okay. Now I don't color in the whole thing. I just kind of leave the top of it open and the bottom of it is darker. So you get this kind of feel of rounded forms. Okay, you can see my hand right here, and my light is coming from above. It's darker below, and it's lighter, darker, lighter, like that on my knuckles. And that describes the form of my hand. And that's the same thing with these rocks right here, okay? It's not really apparent right now with this color right here because it's so light. Let's move up into a darker tone right here. Let's go into this dark or medium tone brown and do the same thing. You're just starting in the darker area and working up a little bit. We're going to go all the way to black as well, okay? And you're going to kind of do the same thing with each color. Here's a little bit of a darker brown. It's a sepia. Okay. Now this is where you'll really start to be able to, you know, tell a little bit of a difference in shaded forms. But it's going to be a much richer color or color scheme, shading scheme, than if you just went only with this one, because you have these other colors underneath it that are kind of showing through a little bit, okay? Now, if you want to, you can also create, stronger silhouette against this planet in the background. So I've closed off a couple of these rocks up top here just to make it a little bit more solid. I'll still have these rocks right around here a little bit lighter. So in other words, I mean, you're just kind of, I always mention this term, but you're oscillating kind of light and dark. You're kind of checkerboarding things to make it look a little bit more interesting as well. But you can see this right here. See this? I still see a little bit of this tone coming through here. So I'll just close it off a little bit more like this so that I don't see this arc of this planet going through my rocks so much. And over here, this form right here where it was darker kind of went right in with the form of the rocks too. It just happened to stamp out that way. I didn't kind of like aim the rock right there, but I'm not really so aware of this edge going down into here, okay? So with this darker, with these darker tones, I'll, spend a little bit more time. Now see it right down here on this rock. I'm darkening the bottom part so that that top part looks a little bit lighter, okay? Okay, something like that. Let's go a little bit more. Let's color this in right here. And then I'll fully get rid of this light arc right in that rock form right there. See that right there? So now the rock looks like it's a little bit, it looks a little bit more forward as opposed to, something kind of more transparent and see-through where you can see this form of this planet showing in there. Okay, we're on our black right here. It's a good kind of shading kind of exercise doing this type of thing where you're going over the back of kind of pre-existing forms and values, light and shade. And then when you do this type of thing too, it kind of strengthens your ability. Let's say I'm doing something on a white piece of paper. I think doing this type of exercise right here, it makes for a really easy process, but it does get you kind of composing in many ways around a pre-existing background. Okay, so a little bit more thought goes into it than starting off with a white piece of paper where everything's just kind of wide open and you can kind of do whatever you want. Okay, but doing something like this, you have to make do, and that's a really good kind of exercise, because a lot of times what we're doing is we're doing something on our own scenes, okay? And through various processes, we might get to a certain point, and then we're thinking, oh, wait a minute, what should I do here? Okay. And that's the point where you start with something like this, okay? So it gets you kind of thinking in a little bit of a different way than starting off from scratch, okay? And in both kind of methods, it really, I don't know, it helps us overall in terms of, I don't know, kind of our interpretation of what needs to be done at any given point within a scene. It's a little bit of a different type of thing. A lot of times people are, we go off of processes, step-by-step processes, which is a really awesome way to learn something, is you copy and follow along with a given kind of plan or a given card format, okay? Because we can get the feel of how things kind of come together. But then, in terms of kind of tweaking things or starting from scratch again, it's a little bit of, it exercises a different part of the brain. All right, so anyways, that is that. I'll show you what I was talking about with the reflection card. Let me see if I have a piece of gold foil here. Gold, just plain gold reflective foil. Do I have some of that somewhere? I'm gonna have a piece cut out here somewhere. Anyways, but a reflection card, it would look something like this. You know, you'd have that reflection down there, and this would represent water. Let me go and cut out a piece of this, and I'll show you what this would look like in a reflection card, because I think that would look really cool. All right, reflection card format. Look at the dramatic type of look of this. I think it's dramatic. All right, so simply just a half-page piece of paper, folded, you know, card formatting, piece of gold foil down here, and you have this look right here, okay? So suddenly this becomes water down here, okay? I don't know, I guess you have some trees kind of in that area. So I just used a Super 77 spray adhesive to adhere this and this together. You can use, when you're using a stiff enough cardstock, which both of these pieces are, you can use your tape runners or something like that. But the Super 77 gives a really, you know, flush application of you know, adhesion over the entire piece. So I really like using that. And one can kind of goes a long way. You don't need to, if you ever get that type of spray adhesive, you don't need to like cake, you know, your adhesive down. Just give it a kind of a light spray, you know, in terms of coverage. Okay, now since this is a reflection card, I'm going to make the base of my rocks here a little bit darker, because I tend to think that looks really good transitioning into this reflected area. Looks like I didn't butt this up very well next to it. There's a little bit of a space. That's why I use a black card base here. But if you're using a different color card base, just take a Sharpie pen, and before you place your two components into the card, do like a black line down here, because like a white line right there would really stand out, you know, between the objects and the reflected area. Okay, so let's see here. So I'm really darkening this base here in here quite a bit. Okay, so you have that. See how that transitions in like that? It's kind of anchored down a little bit more. You go a little bit more. That's a little bit too straight of a line. Okay, let's see that. That's a little better. Okay. When I said straight line, I have this kind of shaded area down here. I wanted a little bit less kind of, you know, uniform of an application here. So kind of going up into some of these rocks a little bit more. The thing is too, because see, I have this reflection coming off here. So light is reflecting off this and bouncing up here. So you have the light reflecting off this area right here, but you also get it bouncing off this and going back up into here. So sometimes I need to make my objects up here or my open areas a little bit darker in terms of the shadow work. Okay, so we have this now. Now that I have this, I'm going to add in some additional foreground here. Okay, I'm going to go with these trees again. And let's see here. Let's use this block. Okay, now if you're going to stamp anything onto the gold foil, just in terms of your imagery, I'd recommend StazOn. Something else isn't really going to stick to this or adhere to it. You can use a Brilliance ink, but if you use a Brilliance ink, you have to spray seal it. I was doing that for the longest of time, but if it's just the straight imagery where I don't have to do any kind of blending on it, I just find the StazOn is just the easiest thing to do, and you don't have to really worry about it. In other words, you don't have to spray seal it to get it to adhere. So, you know, we're removing you know, an extra step. And also if you spray seal imagery on this foil with like a acrylic sealant, this reflective nature of this gold foil, or if you're using silver foil, the silver foil, it gets a little bit more frosted looking and a little bit less reflective. It still looks pretty good, but it's just a little bit less, you lose a little bit of the effect. Okay, now, if you're using StazOn on this foil, any type of non-porous surface, when you're stamping out, it's easy to kind of skew it a little bit because it's a little bit slippery, so kind of watch that. Watch that you don't move your image. I got my image a little bit crooked here, which is fine. But let's go like this. Kind of overlapping a little bit like that, just to give variation to my foreground. All right, let's take a look at this and see what it looks like. So I'm not going to add any highlights into this piece because the background's already fairly dark, and I don't think I would have too much highlighting anywhere. And there's not very much white. There's a little touch of it. I could add a little bit of it in there, but I think it looks just fine as is. I guess if I added any highlighting, I would do it with like a yellow pen. On this one right here, I did use a white one because there was enough white in this planet in the background to represent kind of a white reflected light. But on here, it's really this warm tone right here. So if I did anything, it would have to be with like a yellow paint pen or something like that. But I think it looks really good in silhouette. So anyways, this is right here. I would recommend like some kind of quote stamp or word stamp. I probably have a good quote that I could utilize on here, and I would stamp it in a gold ink. I think that would be the perfect kind of lead in into what people are going to see when they open this up. But this is the look of how that would go, like that when someone opens up their card like that. And here you have this kind of foreground right here. And, you know, when you go like this, it has that kind of parallax, you know, it's, you know, when someone's moving around like that, it gives movement to this piece too. Also, when you open this up like that, you know, you don't get so much of a moonrise. Sometimes if it's a small moon, as you're opening this up, it kind of moves a little bit like that. But I think that looks, you know, like a really dramatic piece like that. If you stamp something in like a gold ink down here, like a word stamp or a quote too, that would look awesome too, because it looks like it's floating on water. If you do that though, just make sure that you're not obscuring your main subject matter, which is this figure. So don't like stamp, I guess like right here. Don't stamp a quote stamp like right here, okay? Or a word stamp, because you would be going right over the top of, you know, what makes this reflected area so dramatic, and that's having the figure down here. But see, something like, if you put a word stamp, maybe something like right up here, kind of in that shadow area there, and it would look like it's floating on water, which I really love the look of. Okay, so we're at the 24-minute mark. So, I mean, I didn't include, you know, cutting out this paper or something like that and pasting it in or something like that, but it just takes a couple minutes. But having that pre-existing paper and background makes for a pretty quick scene. Just, you know, if it was just the scene, we're talking about like 10 minutes or something like that with those colored pencils in there. So anyways, that's how to use a pre-existing kind of dramatic set background in there, okay? So you can see where this shadow was down here, but now the shadow is just in that rock right there. But you know, I don't feel like the rock is transparent or something like that. You know, we're just looking right through it into the background right there. I feel that this rock is forward and in front of us. I'm going to use a little bit purple right here to color this part in. A little tweak right there, like that. Yeah. So fun stuff. Anyways, if you like these videos, hope you hit the like button and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to Deanna for creating these cool backgrounds to create some quick scenes with.